Good evening and welcome to Armageddon Live, Series 2, Episode 15, Revelation 13, 1 through 10, on this 23rd of April, 2020. I'm your host, Daniel Decrypted. Well, once again, it was a little difficult to decide what to do today. But I've decided we'll just look at Revelation 13, the section on the sea beast, verses 1 through 10. I planned on doing something else, but anyway, it's the usual thing. We go to the website, we click on bibliography, we go down to Bible or a Holy Bible, and let's go open up the King James Version. Ooh, I wonder if it's gonna. What? Well, it did open up. If we go to the front of it, I think it's. Oh, there we go. Oh, what in the world? Alright. So there's the front. Now we just need to run over to Revelation. Should be somewhere around there. Not quite. Alright, there we go. Go to page 13, chapter 13. No, I passed it. Alright, and then we'll go and look at the zoomed section. Alright, so we're just going to read through this and then I'll make a few comments on what we read and then we'll call it quits or something. And I stood upon the land of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat in great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwelt in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man hath an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints. So that ends that. Now if we quickly go over to the beginning here, the first couple verses. I forgot to open up my pen. Well, that's not very good. I wasn't completely ready when I started. Anyway, if we look at this again. And I stood upon the land of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The interesting thing about this is what is the imagery that you get of this beast coming up out of the water? What does that remind you of? Well, to me, one of the things it reminds me of, so rise up out of the sea. Well, one of that could be birth. The other imagery it could be is baptism. I'm sorry that looks so bad, but anyway. What is the other thing is baptism. But let's say for the moment that it's actually birth. You go down. Oops. Oh, that's true. This is not a very good system for doing this. But the thing is, if you... Oops, what am I doing? I'm ruining things here. Sorry about that. I'm moving things all over the way that I'm not supposed to be touching. Alright, no, I'm on the right place. So we saw in verse 1 that it rises up out of the sea. We said that is potentially imagery of birth coming out of the watery, what's it called again? Amniotic sac. But see, then we go down to here in verse 3. And at least one of the reasons why you could view it as the first as birth, because then we see that he dies. So he's born, then he dies. One thing you could ask, one thing is, what happens between his birth and what happens between this is not good. I should not be writing this. Well, between the birth plus Alright, sorry for being so slow at that, but what happens? So he's born, he dies. What happens between his birth and his death? Well, actually, that's the contents of the rest of the verses. It's actually interesting. So, verse 1 has his birth, verse 3 has his death, and verse 4 through 10 talks about what happens between his birth and his death. Now look at verse 4. See, the verses here are actually interesting in that they're set up in pairs, where you have a question in one verse and it gets answered in the second verse. So for instance, if we look at verse 4, and it says, "And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast." And they worshipped the beast. So it says, they worshipped. Who is this they? That's what I need to be doing. I need to be using my... Who's the they, anyway? Well, if you want to know who the they is, it actually tells you who the they is later on. So that's in verse 4. If we go down to verse 9, no, verse 8. That question of who worships is answered there. So it says, oh, that's not what I want to do. Well, that's not. Oh, stupid. I'm sorry, I'm doing the wrong things now. Alright. Alright, let me get this. I'm forgetting all my tools. Alright. So it says, and they worship the dragon, right? And who's the they? Well, it answers it right here. All they that dwell upon the earth, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. So there's your answer to the first question. Who are the ones who worship the beast, or worship the dragon? All they that dwell upon the earth, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Alright, so that was verse 4 and verse 8. But then you come up here, let's go back to 4. And it says, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Okay, that actually leads to another question. So, who is able to make war with him. And you could say, why? Ugh. Why would you want to make war with him? Right? Why would you want to make war with the beast? Well, once again, we are given the answer to that question later on in the verse. So let's go back here. Let's go down to... Oh, here we go. Why would you want to make war with the beast? Here's your answer. Because he's made war with the saints. Alright. Let's go back up to our top again. So far we've answered 2 questions. Who are they that worship the dragon? We found that it's the ones whose names are not in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. That's the answer. The second question was, why would someone want to make war with the beast? And we found out the answer for that was because it's made war with the saints. What do we have next? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. Okay. Well, there's another question there then. So, blasphemies. What are these blasphemies? Well, once again, we get the answer to that if we go down and look. Right there, it says, he opened his mouth in blasphemies. In blasphemy, I should say. Against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. Alright, so there's our third answer. And finally, when you look at this, you look at everything we've done so far, and you find out that there's actually a verse in the center. There's like a heart of this entire thing, right? And what is that heart? It's this section right here. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Well, because we asked initially, right, verses 1 through 3, they show his birth and then his death. And we asked what happens in the period between his birth and death. And we found out that people are caused to worship the dragon and the beast. There's war, and the beast makes war. We found he's making war on the saints, and he's blaspheming. And he blasphemes God's name, his tabernacle, and those that dwell in it. So these are all things that the beast is doing during this, between its life, its birth and its death. But then at the heart of it is actually telling how long the beast actually lives. Power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. Now, of course, the interesting thing about 40 and 2 months is that's 3.5 years. Exactly equivalent to Christ's ministry, the length of Christ's ministry. So actually, when I said that coming out of the water is birth, but it also could be baptism. That's why it could be baptism too, because the imagery is also there that this is an antichrist. So just like Christ, the beast undergoes a baptism and then has a ministry of 3.5 years, which ends in a death, just like with Jesus. So anyway, I hope that made some sense to you. So you then see that the period of time that's covered in verses 1 through 10 is actually just the period that is covered between the birth and the death of the beast. Because while verses 1 through 3 talk about that birth and death and give a description of what the beast looks like, it's actually verses 4 through 10 that tell you what the beast's activities are during this period and how long the period actually is. So I hope that this little study was a blessing to you. Yes, I hope it was a blessing to you. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you learned a little more about structure, indicators of how you can see there's a structure. Well, in this case, I guess it's basically from the picture. It's always important to ask questions. So in this case, it happened that by asking questions, we found a structure. Because the questions, each question has an answer to it, and it forms a chiasm, and at the center of that chiasm is the length of time of the rule of the beast. Anyway, once again, I hope this was a blessing to you. I wish you a good night. God bless, and hope to see you tomorrow night. Bye for now.